Ever wonder why the guy who already has a line of women around him suddenly looks even better? It's not just your imagination. We're diving deep into the powerful psychological secret behind why a man's desirability skyrockets when he's already desired by others, and it's far more primal than you think. Listen carefully, because this is not a comforting speech, and it is not designed to protect your ego. This is a truth-oriented conversation, the kind most people avoid because it exposes patterns they unconsciously participate in every single day. Female desire is often misunderstood because people insist on describing it morally instead of psychologically. Desire is not a promise, it is not loyalty, and it is not love. Desire is a response, and responses are shaped by environment, perception, and biology long before ethics ever enter the room. If you want to understand attraction, you must first let go of the fantasy that people choose desire the way they choose clothes. They don't. Desire happens first, explanations come later. One of the most uncomfortable realities is that attraction is rarely created in isolation. Humans are social creatures, and the female nervous system in particular is highly responsive to social proof. This is where pre-selection quietly operates. Pre-selection does not mean copying other women or mindless competition. It means the brain is wired to notice what has already been validated. When someone is desired, respected, admired, or chosen by others, it sends a silent signal. This person has passed a filter I did not have to personally test. That shortcut exists for survival, not romance. It reduces risk, it conserves emotional energy, it feels safe on a subconscious level. Many men misunderstand this and take it personally. They believe attraction should be earned only through direct effort, honesty, or persistence. But attraction does not respond to effort alone. It responds to positioning. A man who is wanted is often wanted more, not because women are disloyal by nature, but because the brain associates demand with value. The same way an empty restaurant makes you suspicious and a crowded one makes you curious. You don't know the food yet, but your mind assumes others know something you don't. This does not mean women consciously chase taken men. That is a shallow interpretation. What actually happens is far more subtle. A man who is already chosen tends to move differently. He is less anxious, less approval-seeking, less performative. His attention is not desperate, so when he gives it, it feels earned. Desire is extremely sensitive to emotional pressure. The moment attention feels like a need instead of a gift, attraction starts to collapse. Pre-selection removes that pressure before a word is even spoken. Female desire is deeply tied to emotional safety, but not the kind most people think. It is not safety in predictability alone. It is safety in competence. A man who is already chosen signals that he knows how to navigate intimacy, boundaries, and social dynamics. Whether that assumption is true or not is irrelevant. Desire responds to perception, not truth. The body reacts before logic has a chance to object. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire is not democratic. It does not reward fairness. It does not care how good your intentions are. It responds to contrast, scarcity, confidence without explanation, emotional self-containment. Pre-selection amplifies all of these traits automatically. When a man's emotional world does not revolve around proving himself to one woman, that woman feels space instead of pressure. And space is where desire breathes. Many people confuse this with manipulation, but it is not something that needs to be performed artificially. The problem arises when men try to imitate pre-selection instead of building a life that naturally creates it. Pretending to be desired is fragile. Being desired as a byproduct of purpose, boundaries, and self-respect is powerful. Female desire is exceptionally sensitive to incongruence. If the confidence is borrowed, it leaks. If the validation is fake, it collapses under emotional weight. there is also a shadow side that rarely gets discussed. Pre-selection can activate desire, but it can also activate insecurity. When attraction is driven only by validation and not emotional maturity, it creates unstable bonds. Desire ignited by competition burns fast and often burns destructively. That is why understanding this dynamic is not about exploiting it, but about becoming conscious of it. Awareness gives choice. Unconscious desire controls behavior. Women are often shamed for responding to pre-selection, as if biology should apologize for existing. Men are shamed for noticing it, as if pattern recognition is immoral. The truth is simpler and far less dramatic. Attraction follows signals of value, and value is socially influenced. Once you understand this, you stop romanticizing rejection and you stop demonizing desire. You also stop chasing people who are not choosing you freely. Real power comes when desire is no longer used as proof of worth. A man who understands pre-selection does not need to compete aggressively. He builds a life that naturally filters attention. He becomes selective instead of reactive. And paradoxically, that selectiveness is what deepens attraction, not because it withholds love, but because it respects selfhood. Female desire is not a contract. It is a moment-to-moment response shaped by safety, excitement, respect, and social context. Pre-selection is not the cause of desire, but it is a strong amplifier. Ignore it, and you stay confused. Obsess over it, and you become manipulative. Understand it, and you become grounded. The hidden truth is this: desire grows where there is emotional autonomy. When a man is not trying to be chosen, he often is. When he is busy building a life, not auditioning for approval, attraction finds him instead of being chased. And when both people meet from a place of choice rather than hunger, desire stops being a power struggle and starts becoming something sustainable. This is not about winning women, it is about understanding why desire works the way it does. So you stop taking it personally, stop moralizing it, and stop building your identity around being wanted. Because the moment desire becomes your oxygen, you lose the very qualities that made it possible in the first place. And this is where most people get stuck because they want rules instead of understanding. They want a checklist that guarantees attraction, but desire does not obey instructions. It responds to emotional atmosphere. Pre-selection works because it changes the atmosphere around a man before he even speaks. His tone, his pacing, his eye contact, his pauses, all of it carries the quiet confidence of someone who is not negotiating for approval. And the female nervous system reads that instantly, far faster than conscious thought. What people fail to realize is that desire is not about being impressed. It is about feeling regulated. A calm, grounded presence stabilizes emotions. A man who is already socially validated tends to be less reactive, less defensive, less needy. That emotional steadiness feels attractive, not because it is exciting in a dramatic way, but because it allows a woman to relax her guard. And relaxation is a prerequisite for desire. You cannot feel attraction when your system is busy protecting itself. Another layer people ignore is comparison. Humans constantly compare, even when they claim they don't. Pre-selection introduces comparison without words. When a man is desired by others, he automatically stands out from the background noise of men who are trying too hard. He doesn't need to explain his value. His value is implied, and implication is always more powerful than declaration. The more someone explains why they are valuable, the more the brain wonders why proof is necessary. This is why excessive reassurance kills attraction. When a man keeps asking, "Do you like me?" or "Am I enough?" he forces a woman into a caretaking role. Desire does not grow where responsibility replaces curiosity. Pre-selection removes the need for constant reassurance. It allows attraction to remain playful, undefined, and alive. The moment desire becomes an obligation, it suffocates. There is also a harsh truth many people avoid. Desire is influenced by hierarchy, not dominance in a crude sense, but emotional hierarchy. Who is centered in their own life? Who bends their schedule, their values, their identity to be chosen? Pre-selection often places a man higher in emotional hierarchy because he is not orbiting one person for validation. And hierarchy, whether people admit it or not, shapes attraction deeply. Women are often taught to deny this reality, to pretend attraction is purely emotional or moral. Men are taught to feel ashamed for noticing patterns. But denial does not erase biology. It only creates confusion. When people don't understand why they feel drawn to someone, they invent stories to justify it. Those stories sound like destiny, chemistry, or fate, but underneath, the mechanism is still perception of value. Pre-selection also affects how boundaries are interpreted. The same boundary set by a desperate man feels like rejection. The same boundary set by a desired man feels like self-respect. The behavior may be identical, but the context changes everything. Attraction does not judge actions in isolation. It judges them in relation to perceived worth. This is why trying to manufacture pre-selection through jealousy games often backfires. When insecurity is driving the behavior, it leaks through tone, timing, and intention. The nervous system detects it. True pre-selection is not loud. It is quiet. It does not need to be announced. It is felt, and what is felt cannot be faked for long. Another dimension rarely discussed is that pre-selection influences not just attraction, but attachment. A woman may feel desire for a man because he is chosen, but whether that desire becomes healthy attachment depends on emotional availability. Pre-selection without emotional maturity creates intensity without safety. That combination leads to anxiety, confusion, and power struggles. Desire stays high, but peace disappears. And here is the contradiction that confuses most people. Women want to feel chosen, but they are drawn to men who are not chasing. This is not hypocrisy, it is polarity. Desire requires tension. Too much pursuit collapses tension. Too much distance kills connection. Pre-selection sits in the middle. It signals availability without hunger, interest without pressure. Many men believe they must constantly prove their worth to maintain attraction. In reality, attraction deepens when proof is unnecessary. When a man trusts his own value, he allows silence, he allows space, he allows uncertainty. And uncertainty, when paired with emotional safety, keeps desire alive. Female desire is also deeply contextual. The same man can feel invisible in one environment and magnetic in another. Pre-selection amplifies visibility. It makes a man noticeable without effort. That noticeability changes how interactions begin, and how something begins often determines how it unfolds. This is why self-respect is more seductive than self-sacrifice. When a man abandons himself to be chosen, he communicates low internal value. When he chooses himself consistently, others often follow. Not because they are cruel or calculating, but because the brain associates self-selection with strength. Understanding pre-selection is not about blaming women or resenting men who are desired. It is about recognizing that attraction is not a moral scoreboard. It is a feedback system. It reflects how you relate to yourself before it reflects how others relate to you. And the most important part that people miss is this. Once you understand this dynamic, you stop chasing desire as validation. You stop trying to be impressive. You focus on becoming internally stable, because desire cannot attach to chaos for long. It may spark, but it cannot stay. When a man's life is full, purpose, boundaries, friendships, direction, pre-selection becomes a side effect, not a strategy. And when desire grows from that place, it is calmer, deeper, and less dependent on constant reassurance. It does not need dramatic gestures to survive. It needs presence, consistency, and emotional clarity. Pre-selection is not a trick, it is a mirror. It reflects how much value you place on your own life. When you build yourself to the point where attention is a bonus and not a need, desire begins to approach you naturally. And if it doesn't, you are still intact. That is the difference between power and desperation. One attracts, the other repels. Because the strongest position in attraction is not being desired at any cost. It is being whole enough to choose, not chase. And when you reach that place, desire no longer controls you. You control your direction. And that is where real power begins.